All right, let's just jump right in. For centuries, for so many people, faith has been this incredible source of comfort, of strength. But, in our world today, something's different. Something's shifted. And for a lot of us, that same faith has become less of a comfort and more of a problem, a really complex, confusing problem.
And this slide right here, it just perfectly captures the tension we're talking about. On one side, you've got this beautiful ancient line from the Psalms, "The Lord is my strength and song." It's all about trust and joy. But then, on the other side, you have something that feels so modern. "The Lord is my problem." I mean, wow, how on earth did we get from A to B?
So yeah, let's dig into that shift. This move from a generation that really experienced religion to one that, well, mostly just analyzes it.
And this is where we get this idea of the discussion group generation. Think about it. For this generation, the main symbol of religion, it isn't some grand cathedral, it's not a powerful hymn. No, it's a discussion group, a forum, a place for endless questions, debates, analysis. Religion becomes this thing to be dissected, picked apart, classified, instead of something you just feel, something that gives you this spontaneous, joyful confidence.
And this quote really hits home. It's from a college newspaper editor, and they were explaining why their week of prayer suddenly got renamed the Annual Religious Forum. It's because the search for answers had totally replaced any feeling of peace, and it led to what they called harassed confusion. I mean, that phrase says it all, doesn't it?
So what happens then? What happens when we get totally fixated on the questions? Well, it can lead to this state of spiritual analysis paralysis.
And look, let's be clear, these questions are totally legitimate. They're not small questions, they're huge, profound, and they are hard. Like, how do you justify a good God in a world that's so often miserable? That is not some trivial debate point. It's one of the biggest spiritual struggles people face, and yeah, it can absolutely leave you feeling paralyzed.
But focusing only on these problems can get you into a tricky spot. And this little poem, it's just the perfect metaphor for it, right? The centipede was happy, running along just fine, until some frog made it think about how it runs. And that overthinking, that analysis, just completely wrecked it. It ended up distracted in the ditch. And that's the danger, isn't it? When religion becomes just a problem to solve, we can end up just like that centipede, stuck and totally unable to move forward.
So here's the real dilemma. The point isn't to just ignore the problems. You can't pretend those tough questions aren't there. No, the real challenge is figuring out how to acknowledge them, how to face them without getting stuck in that ditch.
This is where we get to a really powerful idea. What if problem and privilege aren't enemies? What if they're not mutually exclusive at all? What if they're actually two sides of the exact same coin?
I mean, if you think about it, almost every deep, important part of your life has these two aspects. There's the problem side, the part you analyze, you question, you debate. And then there's the privilege side, the part you just live, the part you experience, enjoy, and are made better by.
Okay, let's use an analogy. Think about nature. For a scientist, nature is one giant, fascinating problem, right? It's this endless series of puzzles to solve about the cosmos, about physics, about biology.
But that same scientist can also just walk outside, look at a sunset, and be filled with complete awe. You don't need to understand every single meteorological equation to feel the absolute joy of a perfect spring morning. Problem or not, nature could still be your strength and song. Here's another one. Family. For sociologists, psychologists, and let's be real, for pretty much all of us, family can be a huge problem to figure out. It's complicated. There are endless debates about how it's supposed to work.
But that's not the whole story, is it? Not even close. For so many of us, family is also our deepest well of love, of support, of joy. You can totally see the problem side of it while still cherishing the incredible privilege of it in your own life.
And one more, just to drive it home, Shakespeare. To a literary scholar, Shakespeare is a big old pile of problems. Historical problems, biographical mysteries, technical puzzles about language, the whole shebang.
But come on, if you get so bogged down in all that stuff that you forget that Romeo and Juliet are two of the most beautiful lovers ever written, you've missed everything. I mean, after all the analysis is done, you have to just sit back and enjoy the story. To lose the beauty of the art because you're so obsessed with the problems, now that would be the real tragedy.
So how do we bring this all back to faith? How do we apply this both and thinking? How do we start treating faith less like a debate and more like an adventure? So here's a possible game plan. Step 1, Acknowledge the problems. Yes, see God as a problem. Be honest about the tough questions. Step 2, do not get stuck there. Refuse to stay in that ditch. And step 3, start to experience what's called the near end of God.
So, what on earth is the near end of God? It sounds kind of cryptic, but it's actually really simple. It's not some distant, abstract, philosophical puzzle. It's the tangible, practical, everyday places where we can encounter the divine. Wherever you see real goodness, real truth, real beauty, real love, that's it. That's the life divine. That's the near end. That's where you can start.
Here's a great way to think about it. You don't need to solve all the complex problems of the atmosphere before you're allowed to enjoy the air, right? You don't need a PhD to take a deep breath on a beautiful day and just feel alive. You can experience it and be sustained by it long before you ever fully understand it.
In this quote, this is a real gut check. Christianity is easier to discuss than to live. Oof, it forces you to ask yourself, have all my questions, all my debates, have they just become a really smart defense mechanism? A way to keep the real, profound challenge of a spiritual life at a safe distance? Are we just hiding behind the discussion because, honestly, it's a lot easier than the adventure of actually living it?
And that really brings us to the final, crucial point. Discussion is great. It's vital. It absolutely informs the mind. But it's not the destination. The experience, the living of it, well, that's an adventure. And it's the adventure, not the discussion, that truly has the power to transform the soul.
So let's leave you with this. Real religion, just like real love, isn't found at the end of a long discussion. You can't think your way into love. At some point, you have to leap. It becomes an adventure. And maybe, just maybe, real faith is exactly the same. It's found not just by asking all the right questions, but by daring to live the adventure.